1. King Leopold II of Belgium. Let's start our journey into history's darkest chapters with a man who never even set foot in the land he brutally exploited, King Leopold II of Belgium. In 1885, he managed to convince the world that he was taking over the Congo as a grand humanitarian project to uplift the local population. But behind this benevolent mask was a horrifying reality. The Congo wasn't just a Belgian colony. It was Leopold's massive private estate, an area 76 times the size of Belgium itself. His true goal was ruthlessly extracting resources, especially rubber, to feed the booming global automobile industry. He enforced a nightmare system of forced labor with impossibly high quotas for Congolese villagers. If they failed to meet these demands, the punishments were unspeakable, including murder, starvation, and the infamous practice of severing hands so his mercenary soldiers could prove they weren't wasting bullets. By the time international outrage forced him to hand the territory over to the Belgian state in 1908, historians estimate the Congolese population had been slashed by up to 50%, meaning around 10 million people perished. 2. Benito Mussolini. Next, we turn to Benito Mussolini, the man who created the very template for fascism and came to power in Italy in 1922. Known as Il Duce, or the leader, he expertly exploited the widespread discontent following World War I, promising a desperate nation a return to Italian glory and absolute order. To achieve this, he unleashed his paramilitary force, the Blackshirts, to brutally intimidate his opponents and project an aura of unstoppable strength. This culminated in the infamous March on Rome, which effectively pressured the king into appointing him prime minister. Once in control, Mussolini systematically dismantled democratic institutions, banned opposition parties, and established a ruthless secret police force to crush any dissent. He crafted a massive cult of personality, portraying himself through relentless propaganda as an infallible, godlike savior. However, the true terror of his ideology was revealed through his aggressive imperial conquests, such as the invasion of Ethiopia, where his forces used illegal chemical weapons, like mustard gas, against both soldiers and civilians. His catastrophic Pact of Steel alliance with Adolf Hitler and the implementation of devastating anti-Semitic racial laws in 1938 dragged Italy into global conflict and widespread persecution. By the time of his execution in 1945, his regime was responsible for an estimated 500,000 deaths. 3. Ismail Enver Pasha. Our timeline now brings us to the Ottoman Empire and Ismail Enver Pasha, a principal leader of the Young Turk Revolution and a dominant figure from 1913. As Minister of War, he was one of the three pashas who effectively ruled the empire during the chaotic years of World War I. Enver Pasha was driven by a fervent, radical vision of a new, homogeneous Turkish empire. To him, the empire's Christian minorities, particularly the Armenians, were viewed as a direct threat to national security and an obstacle to his ultimate plans. This dark ideology was put into action on April 24, 1915, beginning with the sudden arrest of hundreds of Armenian intellectuals and community leaders in Constantinople. This calculated move decapitated the community, leaving them entirely vulnerable to the horrors that followed. Under the false guise of relocation for their own safety, the government launched the Armenian genocide. Men, women, and children were forced from their homes and marched for hundreds of miles into the brutal Syrian desert without food, water, or shelter. This systematic policy of extermination through exhaustion and starvation resulted in the deaths of an estimated 1 to 1.5 million Armenians, leaving a chilling blueprint for future genocides. 4. Adolf Hitler. Perhaps no dictator is more infamous than Adolf Hitler, who led Germany as its Führer from 1933 to 1945. Expertly exploiting the economic desperation and deep humiliation Germany felt after World War I, he promised a swift return to national greatness. Once appointed chancellor, Hitler rapidly consolidated absolute power. Through relentless propaganda and massive, carefully orchestrated rallies, he built a powerful cult of personality that masked the sinister machinery of terror being constructed behind the scenes. His dark ideology, built on racial purity, virulent anti-Semitism, and territorial expansion, plunged the globe into the catastrophic devastation of World War II, a conflict resulting in over 70 million deaths worldwide. Even more horrific was the Holocaust. the systematic, industrial-scale extermination of 6 million Jews alongside millions of other minorities. Using chilling bureaucratic efficiency, the Nazi regime turned concentration camps into literal factories of death, utilizing gas chambers and brutal slave labor. Hitler's promised thousand-year empire crumbled in just 12 years, ending with his suicide in a Berlin bunker in April 1945. His regime's unparalleled destruction forever changed humanity's understanding of its own capacity for absolute darkness. 5. Joseph Stalin. Moving from the horrors of fascist Europe, we arrive at the Soviet Union and Joseph Stalin, the man of steel who ruled with an iron fist from the mid-1920s until his death in 1953. After Lenin's death, Stalin cunningly outmaneuvered his political rivals to consolidate absolute power, transforming a fractured nation into a global superpower at an unimaginable human cost. While publicly presenting himself as a loyal successor, he privately orchestrated the ruthless Great Purge of the 1930s. His secret police arrested, tortured, and executed hundreds of thousands of officials, military leaders, and intellectuals on fabricated charges of treason. Behind the state's propaganda of a workers' paradise lay a vast, brutal network of forced labor camps, known as the Gulag, where millions faced starvation, disease, and were essentially worked to death. The core of his cruelty also included state-sanctioned terror and engineered famines, such as the Holodomor in Ukraine, which systematically starved millions to death as the state seized grain and sealed borders. Although his leadership during World War II made him a crucial Western ally, his internal crimes were staggering, leaving behind a traumatized nation and an estimated death toll of at least 20 million people. 6. Hideki Tojo. Finally, we look at Hideki Tojo, a general in the Imperial Japanese Army who served as prime minister from 1941 to 1944. While he might not have been a singular dictator in the exact mold as Hitler or Stalin, he was the powerful face of a ruthless military junta that steered Japan into World War II. As a fervent militarist, Tojo championed the expansion of the Japanese Empire across Asia under the false guise of liberating the region from Western colonialism. His most fateful decision came in 1941 when he authorized the devastating surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, officially pulling the United States into the global conflict. The true terror of his regime was rooted in a fanatical belief in racial superiority, leading to an absolute disregard for the lives of prisoners and civilians. This manifested in horrific atrocities, from the brutal Bataan Death March and widespread massacres to chilling biological warfare experiments on live subjects at Unit 731. Following Japan's unconditional surrender and a failed suicide attempt, Tojo was found guilty of war crimes by an international tribunal and hanged in 1948, leaving behind a highly controversial legacy that still causes regional tension today.